Seminar organised by the Johannesburg-based Institute for the Advancement of Journalism have raised issues on how the media has covered Marikana. The seminar was titled Reporting South Africa's Policing Crisis, Marikana 1 year later. AJ Director Michael Schmidt said there are gaps in the coverage of the Marikana shootings by some South African media houses. Schmidt made an example that he has never seen a report by a journalist who had gone underground in Marikana. For more on this issue, we are now joined in studio by Michael Schmidt, the Director of the IAJ. Welcome to AM News Show. Could you tell us what are these gaps that you are referring to?
Well, the gaps primarily come out of a report by Professor Jane Duncan at Rhodes University, which studied 153 articles in the daily press over the 13th to the 22nd of August last year. And these very clearly indicated that only 3% of the sourcing for the stories came from workers themselves at Marikana or Lonmin. This is compared to 27% of sources emanating from the business sector, Chamber of Mines, etc. That is obviously quite a skewed percentage. Now, by workers, I'm saying workers disaggregated from either AMCU or NUM members and spokespeople because a lot of the strikers were in fact ununionized. But even if you include NUM and AMCU workers, quite clearly you have a predominance of business voices in what was one of our seminal events in this country, and one in which obviously the workers were on the receiving end of police bullets, and it was clear that one had to interview the workers.
Now, you said that there was a lack of journalists going down underground with the mine workers. What is the solution to this?
Well, by sheer serendipity, on the very day of the massacre, Benchmarks released a sociological report into conditions in the living conditions in the area around Marikana, in the Platinum Belt. This report, I don't believe, received the sort of prominence that it should have done, because it provided journalists with a ready set of studied backgrounds into the social conditions under which rock drillers actually lived and worked. It would, to my mind, have been imperative for journalists to have gotten underground, either with mine owners' permission or using our own devices, to actually take a look at conditions underground. I've been down Impala Platinum before, 2 kilometers underground. The rock temperature is 55 degrees C. The stopes are very dark, cramped and slippery from all the water used to cool the drills. There's a very strong stench of ammonia in the air. These are very difficult working conditions, and a lot of the journalists failed to understand that for 3 years, in fact, the rock drillers had been held back in their salary advances, and there was a lot of confusion around their demand for a pay rise that was seen to be irrational, but in fact was completely rational and totally in line with what the other miners who work on the stopes were getting.
Now, in view of the Marikana crisis, what do you think can be done to improve on journalism?
You know, this report unfortunately reflects very closely on a Media Monitoring Africa report that came out last year relating to the last local government elections. And local government elections, obviously, one would presume, would focus very heavily on service delivery. We have something like 3 violent service delivery protests a day in this country, tying up police resources and, of course, slowing down the free flow of traffic and what have you. Clearly, it's a very important issue for our communities. But what we saw is during the local government elections, only 2% of the coverage actually related to the issues. There was a lot of coverage of the mudslinging between political parties, a lot of he said, she said, a lot of talking heads, a lot of party political rallies, but almost nothing on the actual issues. There needs to be an editorial decision taken in our newsrooms to refocus on the issues at hand and to get our journalists back on the ground and under the ground where necessary.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. That's Michael Schmidt there with me in the studio.